Abeni had a quiet charm that drew people in without effort. She had recently married into the powerful Adeyemi family, one of the wealthiest in the region. Unlike the flashy lifestyle around her, she carried herself with humility. Her calm presence was often misunderstood as weakness, but behind her gentle eyes lived a depth that no one fully grasped. She was respectful, always composed, and never tried to outshine anyone. Yet there was something about her that made people pause, an untold story, a quiet strength. Living in a world full of loud voices and proud displays, Abeni's silence spoke volumes. Her new family, especially her brother-in-law Oba, didn't take kindly to her simplicity. Oba was everything Abeni was not: loud, flashy, and obsessed with status. He looked down on her, convinced she didn't belong in their circle. To him, she was an outsider trying to fit into a world too big for her. He ran a booming tech empire and planned to celebrate his birthday with a party that would draw the rich and famous from every corner. But for him, this wasn't just a party. It was a chance to humiliate. Days before the event, Oba made a shocking demand. He told Abeni to wear a maid's uniform and serve drinks at his party. The intention was clear: to put her in her place. Her husband, Tayo, stood by silently, unable or unwilling to defend her. It was a moment that could have broken many, but Abeni didn't flinch. With a soft smile, she agreed, her calm unnerving everyone around her. No one noticed the fire behind her eyes. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She simply accepted. The night of the party, the mansion glittered with gold and luxury. Powerful men and women laughed, posed for photos, and shared drinks under the sparkling lights. Oba soaked in the attention, confident his plan would embarrass Abeni. As she walked quietly among the guests with a tray in her hand, no one suspected the storm that was about to hit. Then, a distinguished guest arrived. Mr. McConnon, Oba's most important investor. A respected Ethiopian business legend, he valued character over money. As he glanced at Abeni, his expression changed. He looked again, stunned. "Abeni?" he asked in disbelief. The room fell into silence. It turned out Abeni wasn't just anyone. Years ago, she had been a top executive in Mr. McConnon's company, known for her brilliance and leadership. She had left the spotlight to care. Oba, Abeni's brother-in-law, never liked her from the start. To him, she was too quiet, too simple, and far from what he believed a woman in their elite family should be. He couldn't understand why someone like his brother, Tayo, would marry someone so plain, someone who didn't flaunt her wealth or crave attention. Oba judged people by their appearance, by how loud their presence was, and by how well they could show off. Abeni didn't fit that mold. She didn't wear expensive labels or try to impress anyone. That irritated him more than he could explain. Oba was the face of the Adeyemi Empire's younger generation. A flashy tech mogul, he built his company on hype, image, and fast success. He was always in the news, always seen with the who's who of the digital world. Social media loved him. He loved the spotlight even more. He believed status meant everything, and anyone who didn't play that game didn't matter. So, when Abeni entered their lives with her soft voice and strong silence, he saw her as a threat, not because she tried to challenge him, but because she didn't care to. To Oba, Abeni's humility felt like an insult to their wealth. She didn't show off at family gatherings, didn't boast about anything, didn't even try to get in anyone's good books. That made him uneasy. He wanted her to feel small, to know her place. And when his grand birthday party approached, he saw the perfect chance. The event was set to be one of the most talked about celebrations of the year. Influencers, celebrities, politicians, and tycoons were all invited. It wasn't just a party, it was a show of power. Everything about the night was planned to impress. Oba wanted to make a statement, but he also had a cruel idea. He wanted to use the party to remind Abeni she didn't belong in their world. The more he watched her quiet ways, the more he wanted to humiliate her in front of everyone. He didn't care how it would affect Tayo, his own brother, or what it would do to the family name. Oba was blinded by his pride. He believed he was untouchable. He believed no one could outshine him, not especially a woman he saw as ordinary. So behind all the fancy lights and invitations, he planned to reduce her to nothing more than a servant. In his eyes, it was justice, a clear message to her and to everyone watching. This is where she stands in the Adeyemi legacy. What Oba didn't know was that his shallow view of power would soon collapse. In his rush to prove his dominance, he had no idea he was digging his own downfall, and that the woman he tried to disgrace held more power than he could ever imagine. As the party day got closer, Oba's plan grew darker. He didn't just want to ignore Abeni, he wanted to shame her. He called her into a room and, without emotion, told her exactly what she would do that night. "You'll wear a maid's uniform and serve drinks to my guests," he said, smirking. "Let's show everyone your real place." His words weren't just insulting, they were meant to crush her. He wanted her to feel small in front of the entire city. This wasn't a suggestion, it was a command, and he expected no refusal. Abeni stood still, listening to him, her expression calm. She didn't fight back or raise her voice. That only made Oba more confident in his cruelty. To him, silence meant weakness. He didn't understand that true strength doesn't always shout. It doesn't need to. He thought he had won, that she would either break or beg. But Abeni did neither. What hurt even more was her husband's silence. Tayo, the man who had promised to love and protect her, stood by and said nothing. He watched the scene unfold like a stranger. Maybe he was afraid of his brother. Maybe he didn't want to make things worse. But in that moment, his silence said everything. Abeni looked at him, just once, but he didn't meet her eyes. That silence was louder than Oba's words. Abeni didn't protest. She nodded gently and walked away. No tears, no questions, just a quiet acceptance. But inside her, something shifted. It wasn't defeat, it was control. She understood exactly what was happening. She saw the power game for what it was. But instead of reacting with anger, she chose grace. That choice would change everything. Oba went around bragging about what he had done. He laughed with his friends, saying things like, "She'll be passing champagne, not sitting with us." He couldn't wait for the moment she'd walk out in that uniform, a servant at his own celebration. He told everyone to watch her closely. For him, it was the highlight of the night. People around the family whispered, unsure of how to feel. Some were shocked, some afraid to speak, but no one stood up for her. Abeni had entered a world where kindness was rare and pride ruled everything, and yet she moved through it with quiet fire, ready for the moment no one saw coming. While they planned to embarrass her, she was preparing something else entirely, a moment that would not only turn the night around, but change the Adeyemi family's story forever. Abeni listened to Oba's cruel demand without blinking. The room felt heavy, filled with his arrogance and her husband's silence. Yet, she didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't argue. She simply gave a soft nod and smiled. It wasn't a smile of surrender. It was something else, quiet, steady, unreadable. Oba mistook it for defeat. He thought he had finally broken her spirit, but what he didn't see was the quiet storm building behind her calm eyes. There was a sharpness there, a spark that said she was still in control, even if no one noticed. She walked out of the room with her head high, as if nothing had happened. Her steps were slow, graceful, and sure. She wasn't going to let anyone see her shaken. She wasn't going to give Oba the satisfaction of knowing how cruel his words were. Deep inside, she felt the sting, but she also felt something stronger, clarity. She now understood her place in this family, not the place Oba tried to assign her, but the one she would carve out herself, and it wouldn't be at the bottom. All around the house, staff moved quickly preparing for the grand celebration. The walls shimmered with golden lights, and tables were covered in the finest dishes. Everyone was focused on the big night. Abeni, in the middle of it all, quietly got ready. She found the maid's uniform, unfolded it without a word, and hung it neatly in her room. No one saw her pause, take a breath, and look at herself in the mirror. She wasn't looking at defeat, she was looking at her weapon. She didn't tell anyone how she felt. She didn't run to friends or call anyone for support. Her silence became her shield. Every quiet step she took was filled with purpose. She didn't need to explain herself. She didn't need revenge. What she carried inside her was much stronger than anger. It was wisdom, patience, and hidden power. Even Tayo noticed her change. She didn't argue with him, didn't beg him to speak up. She let his silence speak for itself. That hurt more than any words. He knew he had failed her, and yet she still carried herself with grace. Abeni was no longer just the quiet wife. She had become a mystery no one could read. That night, as the world outside buzzed with excitement and lights lit up the sky, Abeni stood alone, dressed in the uniform meant to shame her. But there was something different in her stillness, something strong, something that made even the air around her feel heavier. She wasn't just accepting the role they gave her, she was walking straight into their trap, with her head held high and a power no one saw coming. The night arrived like a movie scene. The Adeyemi mansion was dressed in gold and lights, glowing like a palace. Expensive cars lined the driveway, cameras flashed non-stop, and well-dressed guests filled every corner. From powerful politicians to top influencers and business tycoons, everyone wanted to be seen at Oba's grand party. It wasn't just a birthday, it was an exhibition of wealth and power. Waiters in white gloves served expensive cocktails, laughter echoed through the halls, and photographers moved from guest to guest, capturing every glittering moment. Oba walked through the crowd like a king. His suit was sharp, his smile wide, and his ego even bigger. This was his stage, and he was the star. He shook hands, posed for pictures, and laughed loudly at every compliment. He kept talking about his company, dropping big names and future plans, making sure everyone knew who he was and how far he had come. He loved the attention, the claps, the stares. Every moment was feeding his pride. He kept checking the time, waiting for one thing. He wasn't just excited about the party, he was waiting for the moment Abeni would appear in the maid's uniform. That, to him, was the real celebration. He had told a few close friends about his plan. They laughed, thinking it was just a joke, but Oba was serious. He wanted everyone to see her, to humiliate her quietly in front of all these important people. He believed it would make him look stronger, more powerful. In his mind, lowering Abeni would raise his status. Music filled the air, the beat strong and luxurious. The mansion was buzzing. People danced, mingled, and shared stories over wine and canapes. Oba's parents smiled at the attention their son was getting. Everything was going perfectly, or so it seemed. But in all this sparkle and noise, no one noticed the calm before the shift. Everyone was too busy clapping for Oba, too busy talking about his empire, to sense what was about to unfold. Oba's pride stood taller than ever. He believed he had full control. He thought he owned the night. But the truth was, the most powerful person in the mansion wasn't the host. It was the woman he tried to shame, the one moving silently through the crowd with something more powerful than money, dignity. And while everyone celebrated him, a quiet storm was approaching, wrapped in grace and waiting for the perfect moment to rise. Just as the party was reaching its peak, a sleek black car pulled up outside the Adeyemi mansion. The energy shifted slightly as the driver opened the door. Out stepped a man whose presence immediately quieted the noise around him. Mr. McConnell had arrived from Ethiopia. He didn't wear flashy clothes or walk with loud confidence. Yet, the moment he entered, people noticed. His calm energy carried weight. He was the kind of man who didn't need to say much to be heard. Everyone knew his name, one of Africa's sharpest minds and wealthiest investors, but he wasn't known for arrogance. He was respected because of what he stood for: discipline, wisdom, and grace. Oba rushed to greet him, all smiles and loud praise. "The man who made me who I am," he shouted, pulling Mr. McConnell in for a hug. Cameras snapped photos. Guests whispered excitedly. Oba wanted everyone to see that his biggest investor had come all the way just for him. But Mr. McConnell wasn't impressed by lights or crowds. He gave a simple nod, shaking hands with those around him. His eyes scanned the room slowly, soaking in every detail without a word. While Oba boasted and laughed, Mr. McConnell remained observant. He didn't care about who wore what or who arrived in which car. He wasn't here for show. He watched how people moved, how they treated others, especially those serving. He noticed the ones who smiled with pride and those who smiled out of pressure. Then, as a tray passed near him, something made him pause. A hand, a voice, a glance. He turned his head, and his eyes landed on the one person no one expected him to notice: Abeni. She moved gracefully between guests, holding her tray with quiet confidence. Her eyes met his for just a second, and in that second, something clicked in Mr. McConnell's mind. His face changed. The calm expression faded into confusion. He took a closer look, then shock. The room faded for him as he stepped toward her, eyes locked. "Abeni?" he asked, softly but clearly. His voice cut through the music and chatter. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. People looked between him and Abeni, confused. Oba frowned. unsure what was happening. Mr. McConnell stared at her like he was seeing a ghost. The woman carrying drinks in a maid's outfit was someone he once trusted with multi-million-dollar decisions, a leader, a star, a genius in the boardroom, and now, here she was, dressed as a servant. He hadn't seen her in years. Rumors said she had vanished to care for her mother, but to see her here, like this, was something he couldn't believe. The air grew heavy. The party, once loud and glowing, suddenly felt cold and still. Something massive had just shifted, and nobody knew what was coming next. As Abeni moved through the crowd, holding a tray of drinks, most people didn't pay attention to her. She looked calm and focused, quietly doing what she had been told. But then, Mr. McConnell saw her. He had just arrived and was looking around when his eyes stopped on her face. At first, he looked confused. He stared a little longer, and then his eyes grew wide with surprise. Slowly, he walked toward her. "Abeni, is that really you?" he asked, his voice filled with shock. Abeni looked at him and gave a small smile. She didn't seem surprised. She was calm, just like before. The room slowly got quiet. People nearby turned to see what was happening. Guests started whispering, wondering why Mr. McConnell, the most respected guest there, was speaking to the woman serving drinks like he knew her. Then someone said her name out loud, Abeni. People started searching her name online. Within minutes, they found old articles and photos. It didn't take long for the truth to spread. The woman in the maid's outfit was not just a helper. She had once been a top business leader in East Africa. She worked with big companies, made important decisions, and was known for her intelligence and success. Years ago, she left everything behind to take care of her sick mother. After that, she stayed out of the spotlight. No one had seen her in a long time, and many thought she had moved away or stopped working. Mr. McConnell looked at her with great respect. "You were one of the smartest people I've ever worked with," he said. People around them were quiet. No one expected this. Oba, who had planned to shame her, now looked shocked and unsure. His face changed completely. He didn't know what to say. His guests were no longer looking at him. They were all focused on Abeni. She didn't speak much. She didn't need to. Her calm expression and quiet strength said everything. The people who had judged her were now looking at her with respect. In just a few moments, the truth changed how everyone saw her. She had always been strong, but now, everyone finally saw it for themselves. The laughter that once filled the hall faded into silence. Oba, who had spent the evening boasting and showing off, now stood frozen. His proud expression slowly faded as his eyes followed Mr. McConnell's every move. The respected investor stepped forward, facing the crowd with calm authority. With everyone watching, he placed a hand near Abeni and spoke clearly. "This woman isn't just someone I know. She is a brilliant leader, one of the greatest minds I've worked with across this continent." Gasps broke the stillness. Eyebrows raised. Conversations stopped. People who hadn't even noticed Abeni earlier now looked at her with new eyes. The quiet woman in the uniform who had been serving drinks moments ago was being praised in front of the country's top influencers, politicians, and executives. Mr. McConnell continued. Her work changed companies. Her ideas shaped futures. She walked away from it all for reasons that only made her stronger. The atmosphere shifted completely. Phones came out. Guests whispered her name, trying to remember where they had heard it before. Some recognized her from old news stories and magazine covers. Others searched her name online, stunned by what they found. Abeni didn't move much. She didn't need to. Her presence spoke louder than anything else in that moment. Oba's shoulders sank. This wasn't part of his plan. He had expected people to laugh at her. Instead, they were admiring her. His own mentor had just lifted Abeni higher than he had ever been praised. The room, which once felt like his kingdom, now felt unfamiliar. No one was paying him any attention. The guests around began to nod slowly, their earlier judgment replaced with quiet admiration. Some smiled at Abeni, others simply stared, unsure how to react. Even those who had once ignored her stood in silent respect. Something big had changed, and everyone could feel it. Abeni didn't boast or try to explain anything. Her calm face held steady. She didn't need to remind anyone of who she was. Mr. McConnell's words had done that for her, and more. In a few honest sentences, the truth had been revealed. The woman everyone thought was beneath them had just risen above them all, and not by force, but by pure grace. After the room fell silent and all eyes turned to Abeni, Mr. McConnell looked straight at Oba with a serious expression. The tension in the air was thick. Oba tried to keep his composure, but it was clear he was nervous. Mr. McConnell didn't raise his voice or show anger. He simply spoke with calm authority. "Oba," he said firmly, "your actions tonight have disappointed me deeply. You've shown disrespect, pride, and poor judgment." Everyone watched closely, shocked at what they were hearing. Then came the words no one expected. Mr. McConnell looked Oba in the eyes and said, "You're no longer fit to lead under my name. As of this moment, you're out." A wave of gasps spread across the room. Oba stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, unable to believe what had just happened. The man who had always acted like he was untouchable had just been removed in front of all his guests. Mr. McConnell then turned to Abeni. His voice softened, full of warmth and respect. "Abeni," he said, "we need people like you at the top, people with heart, intelligence, and real strength. I want you back, not just anywhere, but in Nairobi as regional director. The offer comes with a corner office, full control of operations, and 3 times the pay you earned before." The room held its breath. Abeni looked around calmly. She didn't rush or show surprise. With grace and quiet confidence, she nodded and said, "Thank you. I accept." That simple answer carried power. The same woman who had walked in wearing a maid's outfit was now stepping into one of the most powerful roles in the company. People began to clap. Some cheered. Others looked stunned. Oba slowly backed away, realizing he had lost everything in a single night. Abeni, on the other hand, stood taller than ever. She didn't gloat or seek revenge. She just accepted her new position with the same steady grace she had shown all evening. The energy in the room changed completely. Everyone could feel it. Respect, admiration, and even regret filled the faces of those who had looked down on her before. Abeni had risen without shouting, without fighting, only by staying true to herself. And now she was going exactly where she belonged, at the top. Abeni moved forward with calm grace, each step steady, her eyes focused ahead. There was no need to speak. Her silence carried more weight than anything said that night. No one dared stop her. Guests who once overlooked her now parted quietly, giving her the space once denied. Her presence had shifted, not loud, not forced, just undeniable. Behind her, Tayo trailed slowly, his lips pressed tight, guilt heavy on his face. He had failed to protect the very person who had shown him the meaning of strength. His pride was gone, replaced with quiet shame. The weight of his silence now followed him like a shadow. Inside the grand home, the Adeyemi family remained frozen, processing what had just unfolded. The woman they had mocked, judged, and ignored had just walked away with more honor than any of them could ever claim. Their eyes followed her until she vanished from view, but the image of her walking away would remain with them far longer. Phones buzzed non-stop. Images of Abeni in her simple dress, standing with the most respected man in the room, spread fast. Captions praised her grace, her power, her presence. People across the city began to share her moment. Screens lit up with her face, her name. Applause, admiration, and messages poured in from all directions. She entered the waiting car without a word, still calm, still composed. The driver closed the door gently, aware of the importance of that moment. As the vehicle pulled away, her reflection in the window remained steady. She had faced disrespect with elegance, turned cruelty into purpose, and left without needing to prove anything. What others tried to bury had risen, not through noise, but through quiet, unshakable dignity. And now, everyone finally saw her worth. Thanks for watching, dear family. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Check out the end screen videos. You'll love them.